Welcome to the Gravity News channel. Speculative news emerges about the Russian army as Ukrainian forces advanced against the Russian army in the Kherson region. It is predicted that the most heated part of the war between the Ukrainian and Russian forces will take place in the Kherson region. And for the realization of this thesis, the Ukrainian forces are approaching Kherson with all their forces for an all-out attack. Considering that the Russian forces lost a lot of blood in the Kherson area, the Russian forces need a good tactic to defend Kherson, the most central city they occupied. As we approach this war, where the fate of the Kherson region will be determined, it is wondered what kind of tactics the Russians will develop due to the insufficient training and equipment of the newly recruited soldiers with the decision to mobilize in the Russian forces. When we look at the advantages and disadvantages of the Russian army in the Kherson region, we see that the disadvantages are more. Since the Russian army has been controlling the region for a long time, it will have shaped its defense positions in the region according to the attack direction of the Ukrainian forces. This is the biggest advantage of the Russian army. However, it is not known whether the Russian army will be able to get full efficiency from the defense positions due to its deficiencies such as elite soldiers, ammunition, and military training. Russia has said it is withdrawing its troop presence in Kherson, a key battlefield that the Kremlin recently annexed. It was emphasized that senior Russian officials recommended withdrawal in a televised briefing today and accepted an important area. The decision to withdraw came from the Russian top commanders. The withdrawal of Russian forces will give the Ukrainian army an important and easy victory in the southern offensive. The efforts of the Ukrainian forces to expel the Russian soldiers will bear the greatest fruit. Sergei Vladimirovich Surovikin is the Russian Armed Forces Army General and commander of the Aerospace Forces, announced the withdrawal of Russian troops from the western part of the Kherson region. Ukrainian officials stated that they do not believe that the Russian army has withdrawn, despite Surovikin's statements. Sergei Surovikin, who became the new commander of Russia's forces in Ukraine in October, stressed that his troops will be deployed to the eastern bank of the Dnieper River. At a press conference in Moscow, Russian General Sergei Surovikin told Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu that Surovikin assessed that holding Kherson would be too costly and advised Shoigu to allow soldiers to withdraw in order to save their lives and fight the readiness of the forces, stated. The general pointed out that the Russians would be deployed to pre-prepared defense positions on the east bank of the Dnieper River. The head of the Ukrainian military administration of the city of Kherson, Galina Lugovaya, expressed her concerns about Surovikin's statements. Lugovaya stressed that despite Russia's fuel problems in the Kherson region, they would not surrender Kherson to Ukraine forces without a fight. Lugovaya pointed out that this move was a trap to mislead the Ukrainian army. The Russian army aims to catch Ukrainian forces by recklessly entering the western bank of Kherson, unprepared for an attack by Russian forces. Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, stated that Galina Lugovaya shared her feelings. Noting that actions will sound louder than words, Podolyak noted that they did not see any signs of Russia leaving Kherson without a fight. Podolyak pointed out that part of the Russian army is hiding in the city, and that the Russian army is adding additional reserves to the region. At the same time, Podolyak emphasized that the Ukrainian forces did not act with the news spread on TV or social media, and that the Ukrainian army liberated the occupied areas according to the information from the intelligence office. The Ukrainian authorities could not hide their surprise when Kirill Stremosov, the deputy administrative director of the Kherson region, appointed by the Russians, reported that Russian troops would regroup on the opposite side of the Dnieper. Stremosov died recently in a car accident on the Kherson-Armyansk highway in Kherson. Yuri Sobolevsky, vice president of Ukraine's Kherson Regional Council, pointed out that the Russian removal of flags on occupied administrative buildings in Kherson may have been done as a decoy to lure Ukrainian soldiers. Ukrainian spokesperson Natalia Gmenyk said that Russian troops are trying to convince everyone that they have withdrawn, but at the same time, they have seen objective evidence that they have stayed. The Institute for the Study of War noted that Ukrainian forces will seize the upper part of the Kherson Oblast, but they will not be able to liberate the entire region by the end of the year. The ISW noted that even as Russian forces were preparing to defend Kherson city, a partial retreat from the northwestern Kherson area had begun. However, the ISW noted that Russian forces had not begun a full retreat from the city or the area. Sergei Markov, a former Kremlin advisor and political commentator, said that the Russian forces' decision to leave Kherson would have disastrous consequences. Markov stressed that a large community in Russia fears that the decision of the Russian forces to leave Kherson has already been made. Markov said that this move was a wrong decision, and because of this move, Russia should endure the disastrous results. Alexei Arestovich, senior advisor to the president of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky, stated that Russia was expelled from Kherson by the Ukrainian Defense Forces. The conditions and aims of Russia's withdrawal in the face of approaching Ukrainian forces have not been clarified. The circumstances, methods, and timing of Russia's reported withdrawal from Kherson raised some doubts, as Shoigu was not made public. Until the Russian troops are effectively withdrawn, and the Ukrainian troops regain control of the city, the withdrawal of the Russian army will remain a mere pretense. As many war experts have pointed out, this move by the Russian military is likely to be a ruse to lure Ukrainian forces into a trap where Russia could launch pre-planned artillery concentrations on Ukrainian troops when they step out into open space. But given the low Russian military performance since February, Surovikin's claims are very likely to be true. After initially flooding Ukraine and occupying large areas of land, Russian troops were stopped by Ukrainian troops in the early days of the war. The Russian army was forced to withdraw from Kyiv and Kharkov after suffering terrible losses against the victorious Ukrainian warriors. As a result of counterattacks launched by Ukrainian troops as of September, Putin's army abandoned large tracts of land on the Izium front, and Russian forces retreated to their current position near Svatov. The withdrawal of Russian forces as Ukrainian forces approached Kherson may be seen as a mysterious act considering the distance of the Ukrainian forces from the city center. The Ukrainian army does not present a complete threat to the Russian forces at this stage. The withdrawal of Russian forces at such a stage strengthens the allegations that this move is a lie. Russian forces carried out the evacuation of officials of the Russian-backed administration in the region and their families to Crimea. This eviction has been definitively confirmed, but the withdrawal of Russian forces was not fully confirmed. We see that the most authorized commander of Russia's operation in Ukraine is trying to implement a new tactic that he learned in the Ukraine war. As is known, the Ukrainian authorities did not reveal anything to the public about the counterattacks against the Russians. Ukrainian President Zelensky and several senior Ukrainian officials stated that they were preparing for counterattacks in the Kherson region as a result of the pressure, but the Ukrainian forces were targeting the Kharkiv region. High-ranking Ukrainian officials targeted the Kherson region, causing the Russian forces to divert important troops from the Kharkiv region to the Kherson region. Thanks to this, Ukrainian forces were able to quickly liberate the Kharkiv region. Also, while the Western countries began to doubt, the Ukrainian forces needed to liberate one or more regions from occupation so that the Western countries had an excuse to continue their weapons and financial aid. With the success of the Ukrainian forces in the Kharkiv region, the Western countries renewed their confidence in Ukraine. Thanks for watching.